What's up, everybody? Attorney Sam Amin here. Today, I wanted to discuss main headline known as the Insurrection Act, specifically the president threatening to deploy U.S. troops on U.S. soil. And before I go any further, I wanted to remind you to please subscribe, follow me on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook. Also, feel free to please comment and like. And if you have any specific or special questions, I try to answer most of my DMs in a timely manner. Now, back to the Insurrection Act of 1807. That's a 213-year-old act. And the act seeks to empower the President of the United States to deploy U.S. military and federalize the National Guard. And in particular circumstances such as civil disobedience, the act would be appropriate if the president had the explicit approval of state governors. Now, as far as I'm aware, as of today, as of the making of this video, no governor has asked the president to send any troops on U.S. soil. In fact, the Constitution is clear, and it makes it as such. Each state, as a sovereign, has its own power and own way of handling civil disobedience. And only under very limited circumstance where you have the express consent of the governors can you then federalize the National Guard and or send troops to dominate the protesters. The reason why the Constitution makes this distinction very clear is because the framers of the Constitution were afraid that we will have a time such as now where the federal government will try to undertake, or rather take away, sovereign powers from the states. And in other words, the framers of the Constitution, in plain English, were afraid that we will have a dictator, or the federal government will crush opposition if they want at any time. And that's simply not what the framers intended. And at any point, if the president seeks to invoke the Insurrection Act of 1807 and send the military, I can guarantee you it will be a constitutional crisis. And the High Court will have to intervene. Whether or not they will side with the framers of the Constitution and a correct interpretation of the Constitution remains to be seen if we get to that point. But what's at stake here is the federal government usurping state powers, further deteriorating our civil liberties, taking away our rights to peacefully assemble. And while I understand there are looters and people that are taking advantage of the situation to further their own agenda, whether it's to steal or cause chaos in general, I don't think it's appropriate to send the military or use that as a reason for the federal government to further take away our liberties and our rights as American citizens. And generally speaking, civil unrest, such as protesting, burning, chaos, are matters within the previews of each state. And it's not, as far as I'm aware, as of today, the situation has not deteriorated to the point where federal intervention is necessary. Now, what's at stake here, and you have to understand, our civil liberties, and we have very few left. At this point, if they put the military on U.S. soil, as might as well we'd be called communist China or communist Russia. So it's very important to understand what's at stake here. And I'm not trying to advocate for Democrats or Republicans, but just understand, as a person who swore to uphold the Constitution as an attorney, my job is to try to give you a snippet of what the Insurrection Act is, because I feel like it's going to be a problem if the average American doesn't understand what's at stake and kind of decides to take the backseat and become complacent. What's at stake here is having the federal government roam the streets in tanks, in AR-15s or machine guns or whatever, rifles, and curfews and crushing of protesters. That's what's at risk here. So I understand if we continue to have this dangerous rhetoric from the president, which he already acted on when he decided to do the photo op in front of the church by ordering, or rather, let me take this back. He didn't order. Attorney General ordered shooting of rubber bullets and smoke devices to clear protesters so the president can walk across the street and do a photo op in front of the church with the Bible. So if we're going to take that route, as might as well, we pledge allegiance to the Chinese flag or the Russian flag, because that's, at this point, we shouldn't be called Americans, right? Because now we're afraid, so-called afraid of looters, that we're going to just lie down and accept the threat of any president to send federal troops on U.S. soil. Think of that. Just think of it. Whether you support Trump or not, just think about the danger of just making a threat, let alone acting on it. And taking away the powers of the governors, the sovereign state, each state, and having to answer to the Attorney General, because that's what would happen if you invoke the Insurrection Act of 1807. The National Guard will then answer directly. They would be federalized, and then they would answer directly to the Attorney General. And the Attorney General, William Barr, answers directly to the President. So these are dangerous times that we're living. I hope this educational video has given you an outline of what's at stake. I hope that you exercise your rights peacefully to assemble and to demonstrate. I also believe, as my political science professor used to tell us, you can't complain if you don't vote. And I understand a lot of people that live in blue states don't think it matters, perhaps not on a federal level, but definitely local levels it matters. If you're in a swing state, your vote is much more important, obviously, than a blue state or a red state or whatever your political affiliation may be. With that being said, please, if you like this video, I try to make at least one video a week. Subscribe, like, comment, follow me on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. If you have any specific questions, I try to answer most of my DMs in a timely manner. With that, I'd like to conclude. Again, this is Attorney Sam Amin, and I would like to thank you for spending some time with me. Being the only person that's advocating in the courtroom on behalf of the accused is a humbling feeling for me. I believe in the tenets of the Constitution, which is innocent until proven guilty, and that carries from day one until the trial date.